Again,
Hi,
it
I'm
started
Jade
the recording.
and I am a spiritual intuitive psychotherapist. Hi, everybody. I've invited my friend Deb Gabriel, who helped me immensely when I was doing compassionate communication seminars and classes in different areas. And so I've invited her to ask me questions because it's very helpful to me to find out what people need to hear and not assume. So these are questions from Deb and a few other people. And hopefully the questions will be relevant to you so that they'll be helpful in some way, shape, or form. So how you doing, Deb?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. This is really exciting. We've never done this before. It's a first for both of us. And she right now is in an RV going across the country, headed back home this way to Florida. But she's so she's going to stay on audio, not the visual, and just ask me the questions. Field me questions, and I'll answer them. We'll see how it goes. You ready to start?
I am. You talk about the triad in compassionate communication of victim, hero, and perpetrator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I want to really understand that.
Okay, so you'd like me to talk about the paradigm which we've been all living under, which is a paradigm of hero, perpetrator, and victim. And whenever we're using blame, justifying, criticizing, or judging, we're usually in a position of victimhood because it creates separation. And when you're feeling victimized, which I think almost everyone I've ever talked to as a child, they had some feeling, and they wouldn't necessarily call it victimhood or learning patterns of feeling victimized. But it's only later on in life where they start to automatically realize that some of their thoughts and their belief systems are reflective of, why is this happening to me? Like you might, doesn't everybody say that? Why is this happening to me? That's a statement from a place of victim. Like, I don't have control over anything and it keeps happening. What's going on? But we learn that. All of this is learned. We don't come in with this paradigm, we're taught it. And so the other thing is that every victim needs a hero, or we seek one consciously or unconsciously, somebody who's going to save us from our suffering, somebody who's going to save us from whatever it is that we're feeling over challenged by. And so in order for a victim to feel like a victim, there's going to be a perceived perpetrator, even if the perpetrator is the government or a political party. The fact that our country works with just two parties, which is creates a divide and conquer situation, is a perfect example of how one side is pointing the finger at the other side, saying basically that they're the perpetrators. They're doing these terrible, horrible things to our country and to each other on the other side. But we're going to rescue you. So who's the victim here? It's the people. The party that thinks they should be in power are going to be the heroes, and they're pointing the finger at the perpetrator, saying, look what they're doing. Look what they plan to do. And then we're the people feeling like we're in the middle, being victimized by whatever party's in power. Or most people are feeling more and more like they're powerless. When we feel powerless, we've forgotten who we truly are. We're in separation and we're in victimhood again. So even though people don't like to see themselves as victims, because it's a very, it's a strong word, but the language we use in our heads when we're criticizing ourselves, we victimize our own selves. and then are hoping somebody will save us from ourselves sometimes, whether it's the church or maybe the Messiah or maybe a good doctor, but somebody. We look for saviors all the time. We look for heroes. We've been living this paradigm for eons and eons and eons, and only now are we becoming aware of how we need to change that. Now, let me just say that victims usually don't stay victims, they flip. You know, it's like the person who feels like they've been victimized and then they get so angry, they start to do the same behaviors. Children who have been abused by their parents, they often will choose to continue those behaviors and become perpetrators after being victimized by the same behaviors. So to some extent, it's a learned pattern. And to another extent, it's definitely culturally infused in how we operate. And everybody loves a hero, Superman. Look at all the comic books. So this isn't just psychological jargon. This is how we do story. Every story has a hero and a victim and a perpetrator, because there'd be no victim without a perpetrator, and there'd be no hero without a victim, and there'd be no perpetrator if there were no victim. So it's kind of
So we were talking about a situation with a person in my life who is in a relationship very similar to one I was in, where they're the victim of somebody blaming them for everything. And you made a comment to me that the perpetrator was also the hero. I want to understand that.
In an abusive relationship where one of the spouses is abusive and the other one is victimized, it's that abuser, in order to keep the victim entrapped or ensnarled in the dynamic that they've created, that's set up by the batterer, and then over time is just a psychological indoctrination and an emotional indoctrination into believing that they're the problem, that if only they were better or nicer or whatever, they would be able to get through and save the relationship or make him feel better. But whatever it is, that dynamic, it's set up so that the spouse that's the perpetrator will then, to keep the cycle going, become the hero and send the flowers and say, you know, I'm so sorry. And he'll totally flip it so that it gets very, very confusing for the woman that's in the house. She doesn't flip very often. She might flip on her children. You know, the man beats up on the woman beats up on the kids kick the dog. That's a classic. But regardless, and I do want to say that these roles are usually not, they're usually not stagnant. In other words, people don't usually play just the victim or just the hero or just the perpetrator. But in the case where there's a abusive relationship, a battering spousal relationship, domestic violence is the general term, where there's domestic violence, between the two people, there's usually a pretty heavy pattern of abuser and abusee or victim. But it doesn't mean that that victim doesn't turn around and abuse the children or the dogs or whoever. So but they lose themselves in that. It's such a strong bond that you can get lost in that pattern. And often we often think, well, maybe she was abused as a child, but I've met too many women that ended up in abusive relationships with spouses and were never abused in their primary families ever. And they had, even in some cases, idyllic upbringings. So it's not about their past so much as being caught up in a dynamic. And part of it is this brainwashing that goes on that they're just not good enough. So at the bottom of that, if they believe they're not good enough, they won't leave. They won't leave until they understand that they are good enough and they don't have to take the abuse, that it's not right that they take the abuse even. But until they get to that place, they'll just stay there. And you say, how can they stay there? How can they stay there? Because on some level, they don't have the self-esteem. They don't believe that they're not at fault on some level, or they're certainly not worthy to leave. I don't know if that answered your question, did it?
It did very well. Thank you.
Do you have another one?
Sure. Let me, going through tunnels and such.
And by the way, I just want to add something, Deb, to the parents, friends, and siblings, the family and friends of women that are being battered and are staying in that situation. There's a tremendous amount of powerlessness that's experienced because you want to be able to rescue them. You want to be the hero and go in and say, and rescue them, and they're not willing to leave. What they do need from you, though, and the only thing that you can do, so you can't force anybody to leave. You can offer them opportunities to get out and see if you can get through to them by being not enabling them, but letting them know that this is really serious, that they really need to consider getting out because it's not their fault and they'll never be able to make it right. So you have to start feeding them different information than the kind that's being brainwashed into them by themselves and by their spouses, that it is going to get better. And then it does get better, right? And then the cycle continues.
And then it gets worse.
And then it gets worse. It always gets worse.
Well, and it's a spiral. It's a downward spiral.
Yeah. Okay.
How do you get people beyond victim mode?
Well, it's, everything is always going to start with awareness. You can't unbecome until you're aware of what you've become. So if you don't see how your identity has taken up certain images and ideas that keep you in a behavior or a role of feeling victimized, whether it's by your family or by the government or by a political party, or it really, or by friends or people, churches, no matter what, you've got to be able to get to a point where you bottom out, kind of like drinking, where you just realize this isn't working. And I don't believe anybody wants to be a victim, but they can be in denial about it because a lot of victims feel they can be very angry and they can be very much in their power around other people. And so they can fool themselves essentially because there isn't a specific type. Like a frail person. It can be a strong person even who's stuck in it. It really they have to bottom out like anything else and realize it's not going to get better and there's nothing more to do. So they need to get to that place of powerlessness within themselves, that they have to save themselves because they can't save him or her. That's what I would say. You have to have that awareness. And then once you have that awareness, you can start to work on ways to stay out of that role, because victims look for saviors. So don't look for a savior. I mean, we could say that, but if you're not even aware that you do that or that you're feel like a victim, you won't even know to do that.
Well, my thing is become your own savior.
Yes. Thank you, Deb. You need to become your own savior. That's right. You need to understand.
You're the only person who can make the changes.
That's right. Only you can make the changes. And only you, honestly, if you go looking for love outside of yourself, meaning that you're an empty vessel and you're looking for someone to fill it with love, you become dependent on that person as your source of love, and they're just a human like you. The only way to really experience a love that's unconditional and endures for eternity is to recognize the love within. And that was put there by the Creator. I mean, we all recognize love. We didn't produce it, we didn't buy it, we didn't put it in there. So we all recognize it. We recognize it because we were created by it, by that energy of love. And you can't force it. You can try to get somebody to love you, and you know you can't force something like that. So that self-love is really important, that you know you are loved, because that's where it starts, when you start to believe and trust that your Creator truly, truly loves you the way you are right now. And you just can't stay that way because you're not happy, but you're loved no matter what. And there's nothing you can do to change that. But if you try to get it from another human, you will suffer from disappointment, expectations that are never reached, because you're looking in all the wrong places for what you most need, which is within you. It's there. But not until you start to seek it and believe it and trust it and practice it.
Good. Are you ready for another question?
Sure.
What is the most important thing we need to heal as humans?
The most important thing that we need to heal is our sense of separation. What we need to heal is that sense of separation. And the way that we can heal it is through looking at all the obstacles to unity, all the obstacles that prevent us from experiencing that peace within. We have to look at, most challenging of all, I think, is judgment. Judgment creates a block to connection. When we're judging ourselves, we don't feel good about ourselves, and we're judging other people. We put wedges within ourselves and other people through judgment. Judge not, lest ye be judged, they say. But the way I see it, I do believe that. And the way I see it is that when I'm judging someone else, it's because I judge myself. I'm judging them. They're like the mirror. If I weren't judgmental with myself, what I find that when I'm not judgmental with myself, I'm not judgmental with others. Why would you? You're just fine. You're at peace. You don't need to be like looking around trying to find something wrong with everyone or anything. So it begins with self. And that's the most important, is the judgment and the blame, which is part of the judgment, but it's directed outwardly. It's judgment with blame, and then justification. If you feel like you constantly have to justify yourself, that's another obstacle. It doesn't feel good. It's like you have to prove or get someone to trust you, or don't worry about what other people think of you is none of your business. Why? Because you can't change it, and you'll never know what they really think of you anyway. Can you imagine really trying? I wouldn't want to get into anybody's head. It's bad enough I have to be in my own head sometimes, and I have to figure out how to stop the insanity, which I do regularly, because the more you get used to not listening to that blamer, shamer, and critic within your own head, the less you want it there. It's like you get more and more used to the quiet, and more used to focusing on your breathing instead of the thoughts that are distracting you. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
I even forgot where the question was. I just start rolling, and
You have a saying that I love: pain pushes until vision pulls.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean?
Well, I learned that statement from an incredibly wise woman back in California. And it means that when we're in, first of all, pain and suffering definitely have a purpose here on this, in this dimension, or on this plane at this time, because without it, we would never seek anything. Without it, we wouldn't seek to end the pain. So the pain pushes us to seek a way out, which gets us to evolve or change, even when we don't want to. And it's for our highest and greatest good. Because without it, we just become like couch potatoes. We probably, as humans, we're afraid of change often. We don't like change unless it's change that we want, we seek. Like, oh, I want to go on a vacation to Tahiti. Yeah, I mean, if we seek the change, that's one thing, but change is always happening. Life is always happening. And it forces us to start seeking answers, to go within sometimes, to explore, and to get out of that stuck place. So suffering serves an incredible purpose. It's often how we evolve and grow and change. Here's the thing: when that pain pushes us, at some point, some people call it bottoming out or whatever, but at some point, as the pain is pushing us, we push back and the vision pulls us. We have to be pulled towards something. So, for example, you can sit here and say, from now until doomsday, all the things you don't want to do. But until you find something that you want to do, you're not going to be pulled toward it. What suffering and pain does, it actually pushes us until the vision pulls us, takes us to where we need to go, so that we can literally get ourselves out of suffering. Suffering is always created by separation, by the way. Again, when we're separate from ourselves, from our source, from God, when we're in separation from those that we love, and we don't feel in unity and in harmony with those around us, it's suffering, it's painful, and some people get used to it and they get stuck in it, and we say they're grumpy or they're always miserable. It's they haven't ever gotten into a vision to pull out. They're just kind of made it a habit almost. But the suffering is what it's like, the fire underneath us that pushes us forward until the vision pulls us to where we want to go. I love it. It's so true. That's been my evolution.
I shared the saying with a recovering addict, and I think she got it, but I think she might have lost it the next day.
I know it's something that we have to repeat. And another one that I like to repeat to myself and to share is insistence and persistence is resistance. And what I mean by that is that when life is happening around us, and we insist on it being a certain way, a certain outcome, it has to be this way, blah, 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 and we get attached to that. And we're resisting what is occurring in our lives, what is happening around us. We go into a resistance of life where we can't possibly expect, if we're going to be in resistance to life, that we're going to feel peace and joy. We're going to be feeling good, yummy. We're when we're resisting everything that's around us going on, we have to be able to accept. And that's why allowance and acceptance are key indicators of your willingness to surrender and let love in. Because when we go into separation, we're going into separation from our true selves and from love. If it's important when you're in that separation and you get, when you finally get tired of being alone in your misery, and if you haven't gotten help from someone yet, then I'm just here to tell you that stop insisting, stop persisting that things go a certain way, and just allow your life to unfold and start thinking of all the good things that are happening. Fill your life, replace the negative with the positive of gratitude, and watch your life start to shift. Not to more, but to more and more positive. You'll feel better. And when we feel better, we invite more of that positive energy in. It's just, it's the nature of things. It's how it works. It's not my laws. It's laws of physics. But I just try to live
Laws
with
of the universe.
laws of the universe. That's right. Yeah. And I don't know about you, but I'm so tired of this life that we've chosen with so much suffering and pain. And as an empath, it has not been easy. And so if you're an empath, I'm sure it hasn't been easy for you either. You have to make your joy a priority. Your happiness needs to be a priority, and that will help everybody. That will help the planet. That will help everyone that touches your life. And if it doesn't help them, it's because they want to stay where they are and they don't like being around happy people. But we don't have to stay in the suffering. That's just till we get the vision. It just serves a purpose. Just like forgiveness serves a purpose. It helps you to let go of embedded resentment, of past angers, of things that you don't really want to be carrying around anymore, because that person doesn't even know you've been carrying it around. You think the person that you're holding things against really knows that you're holding it against? No, it's in you. You hold what you hold against others, you're holding it in you, and guess what? It's working against you. Forgiveness is the tool, the freedom that says, I'm giving myself my life back for me. And I'm letting go of these ideas, notions, and experiences that have either hurt me or that I felt were unjust, or whatever the energy is around them. I'm letting them go. Why? Because I choose freedom over holding on to the past. So every time the past comes up for me, it's an opportunity to let go of one more thing on that I probably just pushed down, pushed away, because I don't like conflict. Most people don't. So then you swallow it. We need to forgive everybody because they're all human, because you're human, because you've hurt people not wanting to hurt people. And maybe you could say, oh, what they did was way worse. Do you really want to carry that scale around with you inside you? Because that means you're beholden to that scale. I want to get rid of that scale. I want to be freed from those scales and comparisons, because comparisons, you'll always be less than or more than who you're comparing yourself to. Where's the unity in that? Where is the connection and the unity and the love and the joining in that? It's all about separation, comparisons, all the things we learned in schools, even learning about the opposites, comparing. Our learning system was full of it. So now we get to release it. We get to say, you know what? I want something better than this. I want something more than this. And I'm done with the suffering. So what makes you suffer is what you are doing unconsciously. And awareness is the very first place we get to put down the V for victimhood. the P for perpetrator, and the H for hero. You are not here to be anybody's hero. Why? Because I'm sorry, but nobody's broken. You don't need to fix anything. I'm a psychotherapist, and I don't believe I fix people. I believe I shine the light on things, and then people are ready to hear it or they're not. And if they are, it's golden. But they have to receive it. They have to take it in. They have to open their ears and hear it. They have to be willing to shift their perception, which is not easy to do. Not easy. It means you have to be willing to look at it a different way and say, maybe I'm not looking at this the way that's for my highest and greatest good. Maybe I'm looking at this to protect myself so I can have a full sense of security and safety. Isn't that why we keep a distance from people? So
Yes,
safe?
in
Yeah.
my experience. And it's only since I put myself out there that I've really found the changes that I've been looking for in my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've made some incredible big changes. Huge. Yeah. Whole new life. We get to have a whole life. That is a choice. We don't have to feel disempowered. I'm stuck with the situation as if we don't have to stay there. We might be there, but we don't have to stay there. We can make the changes that we want for us, not for anybody else. We've made changes our whole lives for everybody else, for our parents, for teachers, for anybody that we wanted approval from. We made changes. Now's the time to make the changes you want for your life. Why not? Why not give yourself what you deserved all along? And it was just programmed out of you. I mean, I don't know about you, but I would think the first thing you ask any child what makes them happy, and unless they've had a lot of damage and trauma, they'll be able to tell you, well, I sat there one day and I had to really give it some thought. What is it? You know, it took me because I'm so used to problem solving. I'm so used to my brain not working on what makes me happy, but working on doing things to stay safe, keep things going, which ultimately is all about staying safe. Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, go for it. Have some fun in life. Make that the priority. And then you'll see how little suffering appeals to you or appeals to anybody. After a while, this suffering that was such a habit becomes very unappealing. Yeah. Habits are just programming anyway.
Yep.
Any other questions?
I do have other questions. How can you see failure as an opportunity for growth?
Oh, yeah. That's a really good one. Yeah, most of us won't take risks because we're afraid of failure. We find all reasons not to move forward when our heart tells us to, because we don't want to fail. It brings on a feeling of shame, and by the way, shame means feeling badly about yourself as a being, whereas guilt is about what you've done. It's a behavior. You feel badly about a behavior. Well, behavior isn't who you are, but shame is who you are. And when you experience shame, which people do often when they experience a sense of failure, they'd rather risk not trying than to have that experience. But here's the thing. The truth is that you never get to mastery except through failure. It is the only way to get to mastery, whatever that mastery is. It's practicing over and over, knowing that you're not going to get it right away, but you don't give up. And that's how you master anything. So forget about using the word failure and think of it more in terms of this is an opportunity to see if this is something that I can master or want to master or will master. You know, it's just all of this. We're just on a big training ground. If you think of the planet as this place for us to just train and try new things, it's you can start having fun, a little fun, and not take it all so seriously. I think we all take it too seriously. We need more laughter. It's so good for us. Laughter is therapeutic. You want some therapy? Start laughing more. I'm laughing a lot more these days.
That's good.
At myself mostly. But some of these videos of the animals I love on YouTube, and I mean on the videos, and when I see them, the shorts with the animals, oh my God, they crack me up. The best are babies. Do you have another question?
Hang on. I liked what you were saying about the two-party system of politics. Do you want to make any comments about the current election?
Do I want to make comments about the election? Good question. I've chosen for the first time in my life to, it was hard for me to vote in terms of I see it as a systematic corruption that the system needs to crumble and fail so we can rebuild something that's for the people and by the people. So I'm more concerned about after the election, actually. My understanding from other sources is that whoever ends up in power is going to not end up staying in power. It won't really matter. They won't be there the whole time. That something else is going to take place. I don't know whether it's assassination, whether it's a reforming of the government, and I have no idea. So I'm kind of interested in that. I don't like the duality that the two-party system creates because it's a divide and conquer situation, and families end up divided, and neighborhoods, and it can get really ugly with just two parties. It's less diverse, and it keeps us divided. So I ended up deciding I needed to vote based on my values. So I did that, and I'm fine with that. But I have to say, I don't get the joy out of voting for someone I really want to vote for, because I'm voting for someone in a system that I no longer really believe in. But my faith is not in the system, really. Ultimately, my faith is in what's going to evolve and occur. And I think that the political system will be evolving, like it or not. And I'm looking forward to that. So I just have to have a lot of patience. And I ask people to have a lot of patience. Things are not what they appear to be. Oh, no, they're really not. So no matter what happens, it's not going to last very long anyway, because there are changes that are beyond any one human party or one human system. There are we're getting a lot of help right now in this time of ascension. Yeah. Anyway, how about you?
It was an easy choice once I heard both sides.
Yeah.
I don't want to see democracy die.
Right. And here's the thing that both
democracy die. It was an easy choice.
And both parties believe that the other one is going to kill democracy. And that's the thing. They villainized each other, getting back to the paradigm again. They have villainized each other. Now, for me, it did come down to one thing and one thing only, and that is I will not allow, in my vote, I will not allow the government to tell a woman what to do with her reproductive body, with her vagina. It should never be in the hands of government. So that for me is the main issue. But everybody's got one. Some it's the economy. For me, it's that has no place in my body, government. That was it.
The whole woman's right to her own body thing.
I mean, if we're going to start doing that, then we should say, okay, well, let's just rip off the penises of all the rapists. People have been convicted of rape. I mean, where does it end? They would never let that happen. I say if you're going to have abortion, then you have to have the father, the DNA tested, and you have to force that father to pay support for the rest of that child's life as a child until 18 or 21 or whenever the responsibility of a parent's rights are over in whatever state they're in. But that sure, okay, you want to force women to have children, then you have to force the men to support them. That would never pass. And that's why it's about controlling women's bodies and not about the child. Or the men would have stepped up and said, that's right, I want to be able to support my child, even if she doesn't want to have it. But nobody's doing that. Nobody's doing that.
Nope.
Says a lot.
Yep. So it was interesting seeing the commercials in Arizona, which has an abortion ban similar to Florida's.
Oh, yeah.
And
tell me, what was that like?
A gynecologist was on TV saying, and I have to tell these women who are miscarrying, there's nothing I can do because there's an abortion ban, and even if I'm saving their life, I'm in the wrong.
God. Yeah. Division again. Divide and conquer. That's another divide and conquer. Doctors against patients. It's all over. Divide and conquer.
Yep.
But it's going to end.
Well,
this is the last lifetime.
I'm in Texas now temporarily.
What's that? What was that, Deb? I didn't hear you. You're cutting out. We don't have a good connection. Anyway, I just want to thank you, Deb. You're not coming in at all. But I want to thank you for coming on today. I'm thinking that maybe this might be a good time for us to stop. A safe trip back for both of you. I look forward to seeing you both when you get back. And I think I'm going to end the recording right here. For anyone who's listening, I hope you were able to get something out of that. I hope you feel supported, maybe more conscious and aware, because that's the power. The power is in the awareness, in the consciousness. That's where the power is. Be aware, and then you can change things. If you're not, what are you going to change if you're not aware of it? Nothing. You're not going to change anything until you're aware of it. So that's the first place. Just be aware. Start asking yourself the questions. What do you want to do with the rest of your life? Bye for now.